Thank you for having us. My name is Amy Dodson. I am the Blended Learning Director for Cisco ISD.
I'm Karen Hickman. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Pasadena ISD. And I have brought with me Tony Lopez, our Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. She's going to be my clicker.
We like to delegate things. Blended learning can be defined in so many ways, and if you look and search for that and look at models across the country, you'll find similarities and you'll find very stark differences between different models. Blended learning is truly just the integration of great teaching with great technology, face-to-face instruction with online support. Those are the things that we're trying to do in our classrooms that make us a little bit different. We're trying to make sure that every student has the opportunity to grow and to challenge themselves in a very real way. Blended learning takes the best and puts it with the best. One of the things I always find interesting when I sit next to Pasadena, that I can sit next to my colleague who has some 55,000 students? Is that accurate?
Right
55,000 students.
Before the hurricane.
55,000 students, and yet I can sit with here and have less than 1,000. Cisco has 940 students, K through 12. But we have so much in common because we're committed to public education, we're committed to student success, we're committed to students being at the center. And what really ties us together is an initiative called Raising Blended Learners. RBL program started with a 10-month competitive process, going for a grant to talk about innovation in the classroom. Talk about classroom efficiency. That's what we're executing right now, is getting efficient use of our teachers and technology and how those things go together. Raising Blended Learners brought together 5 demonstration sites: Pasadena, Cisco, also Point Isabel, Birdville, and Kip Houston. 5 sites willing to take on a challenge and do things different, differently, to change the traditional model and to go out and put our students at the center. After 10 months, we went through tears and joy and excitement, and we were pushed and prodded, and we came to a model that worked for our districts, things that we believe could work for us. So that's what ties us together today. And I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk to you about Cisco, about our model and what we're doing. As you can see, as I said, 940 students. We were actually selected as a national model school about 3 months ago, just a year and a half into blended learning, as a school that we're showing and demonstrating what we're doing to people around the nation. And their description of Cisco was this: imagine Friday Night Lights. That's who we are. We're a small, close-knit community of less than 4,000 people. We see each other at the grocery store. We see each other walking down to the coffee shop. And we see our kids in the ballparks and the classrooms. When we say our kids, we mean our kids. We recognize that how our school district goes, how our students achieve, that impacts our future as a community. Everything that we do impacts what our rural world will look like in a few years. So we took the opportunity to do something different very seriously. We initially got into blended learning to target high students. Cisco has always been a very high achieving district, very successful in terms of STAR, and we're very proud of that, and we want to continue that. But we recognized a gap. We were doing an excellent job of bringing students up to passing. We were not doing a good job of taking those students who already had mastery of content and pushing them further. There was not a vehicle to do that. In a classroom, teachers are teaching everyone to the best of their ability and with great skill and as much precision as they could have. But we weren't pushing our high kids. So that became our target area, was we need more high achievers, more master's level students in math and science in particular. So we targeted that. But rather than give you data, let me tell you what we found. We found very quickly that while we were helping those students in a blended approach, being able to personalize learning, we also found ways to help our students that were struggling, students that were forgotten, that we truly thought we were doing a good job with. We found that blended is giving us the way to do better at that. So I want to be able to talk to you about what our model is. We are doing data-driven instruction. 2 points. Data-driven instruction and student agency are the only ones I'm going to hit on. You see on your paperwork and on the slides that we have 4 pillars that ground our classrooms. But why we are committed to blended learning and how it's changing the dynamic on our campus, how it's changing our teachers, starts with data-driven instruction. Being able to recognize where a student is immediately, in real time, and target down to the TEAC level where their skill deficits may be, or conversely, where they can go further. Where do they already have mastery and they're ready to be pushed? That's something in a traditional classroom we were unable to do. You can look across the room if you're teaching and you can see, oh, I think my nonverbal, I think they've got it, maybe they don't have it. Data gives us the ability to truly know that in a real way and tangibly make a difference. I call this data that we're using, it's actionable data. It's not something we get 6 months later that we go, oh man, we missed that somehow. This is actionable data to be able to move forward and move our students forward, to personalize those things. We've identified gaps in students. Students that had passed the STAR test, that we had said, ooh, rubber stamp, you're good. But they had gaps. And as we try to explain to our elementary students, currently Cisco blends 3rd grade through 8th grade. Next year we'll blend 1st grade through 8th grade with a push forward in the next few years to our high school, and also we'll be bringing on kindergarten. But as we explain to our elementary students, this is what a gap is. Imagine you have your house and you have your roof and there's a little bitty hole. Maybe you passed STAR and you did great and we're proud of you and we celebrate that. But if you passed, you only passed 65% of the questions. So you had a little hole in your roof. We talked to them about how a little bitty drip might start in your house. And then what about next year? We didn't fix that hole, but maybe next year another hole pops up and then another hole. And eventually you've got a huge leak or your whole roof caves in. And kids understood that. They even talk about that now. They say, I got to fix my roof. I got to fix my roof. Blended learning lets us take master teachers and give them the scaffolding they need with real-time data and with technology. You know, one of the things I thought about driving down here that we continue to work on in our community is for people to understand that blended learning is not tech-enriched. It's not tech-enhanced. It's not one-to-one, put a computer in front of a student and think magic happens, because magic doesn't happen between a child and a computer. Magic happens with a teacher that loves their students and has the help that they need to meet with them one-on-one. We have increased the engagement of our students. Yesterday, I had a team of students from Abilene Christian University. They're about to start student teaching. They came to us to look in our blended rooms. I think they left changed. They walked out and they said, we've been observing in classrooms that it's just a straight row and everybody and students are, they read and maybe they listen. She goes, the students told us, we walked into a room of 3rd graders and you had every single 8-year-old on point. Every single one was engaged. Our teachers are happier. We understand, and I hope you understand, that blended learning gives us the ability to make magic because it's about the teachers. You know, a hammer doesn't create a beautiful home. A master craftsman with a good hammer makes a beautiful place to live. That's blended learning. Take a great teacher, give them the tools with technology, give them training and support. We gave our teachers freedom to fail because this was new and this was unusual. We gave them freedom to fail and they ran with it. We sat in a room yesterday and I had a teacher that's in her 5th year that when we started this blended learning process was ready to leave the profession. Brilliant young woman, great math degree, was going to do great things, but felt stifled and suffocated in a traditional classroom. She was going to pay off her student loans and she was gone to some other profession. She now sees a room where she can walk in and she can meet with every student. She can help them set goals. She can talk to them. She can engage them in a way she never could before. Now she is a teacher. And she will be a teacher for us. On the other end, we have teachers that yesterday, one said with a glow about her face that still makes me excited. She said, I've been teaching for 26 years and I was in a rut. In fact, rut doesn't even cover it. But now I'm excited to come to school every day again. Another teacher said, this is what teaching was always supposed to be. I knew in my heart that this is what it was supposed to be, about reaching every child. One teacher, she said, for 17 years, now in blended learning, I see every single student every single day. I have a touch point with every one of them. I know where their skills are. I know where their deficits are. I know where they're ready to fly because blended learning gives me that ability. Before I pass it on to my colleagues, I don't want to take up your time, Karen, I want to tell you about a student, a high flyer who was in the 85th percentile, masters those stars, doing great. Described blended learning as freeing to her. because she articulated it so well. She said, I would get the concept, I would have it, and then I would sit there and either have to help somebody else who didn't understand to give a little help, which she didn't mind doing. But she said, most often I'd sit and read my library book. And I like library books, but I wasn't doing math. Blended learning, she said, was freeing to her because now she can keep going. Now she has the challenges. The teacher can be working with students who may need extra help, and if she's mastered that content, she can go on and she has technology to then help the teacher enable her as well. But the other side, the unintended consequence for us, was the student who didn't pass the STAR. It was this young man who came in who had failed the STAR test in math the year before, and in our data, the data tool that we're using very frequently now is NWEA's MAP test. I believe you all use that as well. It's just about student growth. This young man failed the STAR test, came in beginning of the year, last year as we started blended learning, in the 4th percentile nationally. 4th. No way he's going to pass math. No way he's going to pass the STAR test. In a traditional model, we would have worked hard. We would have done everything we could have to intervene and to help him, but we didn't have the data to know where his skill deficits really were. And we had to cover everybody else. The personalization wasn't there. But let me tell you, with the data and the empowerment that we found through student goal setting individually with teachers, that one-on-one that they never got before, this young man started seeing gains. He started seeing he was getting it. By mid-year, he had climbed in about the 20th percentile. By the end of the year, he had climbed to the 36th percentile nationally. That means he grew absolutely as much as he could have. He grew in the 99th percentile. He couldn't have grown anymore. Now, he still failed STAR. He's still a failure on our record. Let me tell you, that young man is not a failure. He came in this year, very even for the summer, typical after a summer break. But after mid-year, he is on track this year in 5th grade to pass the STAR. He's now in the 51st percentile nationally. So in one calendar year, in 12 months, he has gone from the 4th to the 51st percentile. He's going to make it because we were able to personalize. That's efficiency in the classroom to me. That's what blended gives us the opportunity to do. So I thank you so much for letting me come and share that with you.
Thank you, Ms. Dodson. That's very encouraging. Thank you.
So I'll just say ditto on a larger scale. I do want to thank you for allowing me to come to talk to you about the blended learning work we're doing in Pasadena. About 5 years ago, we were searching for an approach to schools that would take our students to the next level. We brag about a 90% graduation rate, which is pretty amazing for our students. We're proud that with the challenging demographics that we face, we frequently meet or beat the state averages on many of the STAR tests. Yet, when our students graduate, only 54% enroll in college and only 27% complete a degree in 26 years. Our students leave our schools academically ready, but do not have the necessary skills to move forward, college, and career ready. They do not have the self-management, perseverance, or decision-making skills for the success that we describe in our Pasadena ISD mission statement. When we found the Summit Public Schools model, we found a system that appreciates the need for a strong academic foundation, but also provides clarity and guidance for students to develop the skills that empower a student to be successful in life. Rather than reading all the slides that I have, because we're not going to be able to go through all of those unless you want to be here till midnight tonight, I want to share some of the stories, as she has done, about the success of our students and what we've seen through this Connect program through the eyes of parents, teachers, and administrators. Hancock Elementary is my favorite Connect success story. Hancock was opened 2 years ago. It's a small school with less than 500 students built to provide relief for overcrowding. Over 98% of our students at this school qualify for free and reduced lunches. All of the students live in nearby apartments that we require staff to be escorted by police in order to visit. They are filled with crime and drugs. The first year that Hancock opened, there were over 2,000 office referrals, and the scores that came back from those students were abysmal. The third grade group was particularly rough. The language was crude, the students were disrespectful, one teacher quit, the assistant principal quit, and others were threatening that we can't come back to this school. When the principal heard that we were going to pilot Connect in 4th grade, this brave principal asked to try it in her classrooms. At the beginning of this last October, after missing 2 weeks of Harvey, so 4 weeks into actual classroom time, I went to visit these classrooms. I walked in and could not believe what I was seeing and hearing. 100% of those students were actively engaged in learning. They were using their computers. They were taking notes. As I walked up to these students, they eagerly shared what they were learning, how they were learning it, why they were learning it, and how what they were learning applied to the projects they were going to use later on in the day. Each student glowed with pride at their work and spoke as if they were young student scholars. It's like, where did we get these kids? They were the same kids from the year before. I cannot wait to see their scores because I don't believe that just what's happening in the classroom will absolutely translate to their STAR scores and their success in life. I believe that after waiting so many years to see something that will absolutely transform students, we have found it in that classroom. One of the students looked up at me after I have this crying problem. They looked up at me and they said, "Miss, I'm just telling you about my work. Why are you crying?" It's like, oh, it's not you, I have allergies. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Connect program, which is our approach to blended learning. Connect consists of 3 pillars. Basically, a lot of what you just described. We have mentor time, project time, and personalized learning time. Habits of success are developed in students through mentor time and the relationships that they build with their teachers. Students set weekly, obtainable goals supported by viable strategies. The students love this time with their teachers. Recent quotes from students: "My teachers really care about me. My teachers really know me and what I need. My teachers guide me forward. They know everything about me." We also have something called project time. The Summit Learning and Pasadena ISD has created interesting real-world projects for students to apply their learning to real-life problems. The projects allow students to apply the content they learn to real life, bringing relevance to their learning. Tremendous growth in confidence, presentation skills, and cognitive thinking and learning is evident by all who observe these classrooms. The projects actually make up 70% of the grade. 30% of the grade is made up through their content work and the personalized learning time. During personalized learning time, students master content via resources using playlists, so they get to choose their own way that they want to learn the topics at hand. Teachers check in with students about their academic progress, provide coaching, tutoring, as students focus on mastering content knowledge that is later applied to the projects. Students are able to move at their own pace and have different options to learn the same information. Unlike in traditional lectures, they aren't pushed too far ahead of what they're actually ready for, but they're not bored because they already know what's fixing to be taught. This time includes peer tutoring, small group instruction, and one-on-one check-ins with the teacher. It is not hours sitting in front of a computer. Students are assessed over each focus area, and they must master the content at 80%. And then again, like I said, this is 30% of their grade. So one of the most exciting parts of this is the role of the teacher. In the Connect classroom, it is absolutely being transformed. Most importantly, the focus and the time of the teacher has moved on what and how to teach something rather than how to intervene, motivate, and guide students through learning. Much of their time is working in small groups and utilizing daily data in order to provide just-in-time, direct instruction as needed. The most important role of the teacher is mentoring each student every week. They guide students on setting both academic and personal short and long-term goals. Teachers are empowered with individualized data, allowing real-time interventions personalized for every single student. right at 100%. I can think of 2 out of the 50, 60 that we have of our Connect teachers say they will never go back to traditional classrooms. I was walking to my dog last night, and a lady on the street said, "Aren't you Dr. Hickman from the..." "Yes, I am." "Hey, I've been teaching for 33 years, and I'm a brand new Connect teacher. I was going to retire. I am sticking with this. I now love teaching again." A letter from a principal. "Thank you for giving our kids the opportunity to have the Connect program and the opportunity to prove how capable and eager they are to achieve. My kids are amazing, and I am passionate about them having the same opportunities that all the other kids have, regardless of our economic status. I know what a financial commitment the Connect program is, and in this time of education, I don't take that lightly. Thank you for giving our kids the ability to change their lives and educational experience through the Connect program. We have the best Connect teachers in the district. They will never go back to teaching another way. They have done a phenomenal job with the program, and the teachers, are the reason for the success. Pasadena students are thriving in this model. They are self-directed learners who have agency over their own learning. The features of choice and self-pacing empower students to own their own work. When interviewed, students routinely rank self-pacing as their favorite element of the model. The students love that they control the pace of their own learning. One of the most exciting parts of Connect is that students are fully engaged throughout the day. Senator Taylor, you got to come and visit this in action at Thompson Intermediate. We went from class to class. The students were obviously excited about their work. They were anxious to share and explain what they were doing to their classroom visitors. After walking through the Connect classrooms and seeing every single child excited about their learning, Senator Taylor bravely said, "Let's go in a regular classroom." It's like, okay, so we picked the very best. Let's go in a teacher that we know can wow them. We go in the classroom, and he was doing a beautiful job teaching. The students were listening and participating, but there is no comparison between the two classes, and the level of excitement about learning and the student engagement is absolutely amazing. Connect kids go home tired every day from the amount of thinking and working they do, but they go home with a sense of purpose and belonging. Here's what one parent shared about 2 months ago. "I wanted to say thank you to Pasadena for giving my child a place where he feels like he belongs and fits in. Timmy was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and anxiety and depression. In 5th grade, he contemplated suicide. His school suggested that he would be a good fit for a new program called Connect. While in this program, he finally felt like he had a purpose and sense of belonging. He went from being a child who walked like he was in a shell to one where he held his head up. He has come a long way, and we credit the Connect program. His doctor recently asked what happened between 5th and 6th grade that helped change your feelings and your contemplation of suicide. His response, and I quote, "I got asked to be in a program called Connect, and I finally fit in. I don't want to think about the possible outcome if Connect had not been implemented in Timmy's school 3 years ago. Timmy is the sweetest kid in the world. He wants to belong like all students do, and PISD's willingness to strive for all students' well-being gave me my son back." So, you're the finance group. You're talking about finances. So let's just take a minute and look at finances and what this costs. In our district, it does mean one-to-one technology and the need for infrastructure and the ability to access the internet. The training necessary to transform leaders and teachers is a heavy lift, as is ongoing coaching for both groups prior to really understanding their new roles. Our coaches have had to talk many of our folks to sticking with the program during their first semester of implementation. Some of them begin transitioning to that, oh my goodness, we love this, around October, and we finish with the cohort usually in March, with some people, okay, at that point saying, wow, this is what I want to do. Curriculum writing is also still an ongoing task by teachers and specialists to ensure rigor and relevance in every playlist, in every project, in every course. So that's some heavy lifting also. We want to thank Raise Your Hand Texas and the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative because they have financially supported this work, making our explosive growth possible. Our district is now a hub for other districts to visit and learn about blended learning. We've had hundreds of visitors and districts come and send their teachers and leaders to professional development hosted in the district. You might be interested to know that the Commissioner of Education for the state of Kansas is bringing his team to tour the district at the end of this month. We're very pleased with the progress made. Sometimes we have to just look at STAR and say, what does it look like? You have charts that show that. We are very pleased with the STAR ELA scores. They're pretty amazing compared to our regular students, as are our math scores. But this is not a silver bullet. Strong leadership and teachers are a must for student success, just like in the traditional classrooms. Campuses where we've had a change in leadership or weak leadership, you'll see a couple of campuses that have experienced struggles because those weren't in place. ELL and special ed students are doing really well, but we're still working on how to best meet their needs and intervene appropriately within the model. We have 2 schools that went school-wide this year, middle schools, 5, 6 schools, and we're working closely with these campuses to determine best practices for these special populations. Because of these results, our pilot is growing much faster than what we expected or what we planned. Our expansion is not keeping up with the demand because of our current capacity to successfully support the number of teachers and administrators that have to be trained and supported. I'd like to close by inviting each of you to visit some exciting classrooms. If you want to be excited about public education in Texas, come on out. This model for educating our students has the potential to revolutionize our educational system. I appreciate so much the honor of being able to talk to you today and share these stories, and I look forward to your partnership and all of the decisions that you make to transform how we educate the students here in Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hickman. That's very encouraging. Questions from members? Senator Taylor and then Mr. Williams.
Yeah, I echo everything that both of you have said. I mean, I think this is one of the most exciting opportunities to transform education and bring us into the 21st century. And having actually experienced it, and frankly, I went through 8th grade classes, 3 different subjects. And I think most of you probably remember 8th grade. I walked into 3 different classes. Yeah, but 3 different classes. And when they say 100% engagement, they're not exaggerating. I'm talking about kids. You first walked in, the very first one they walked in there, the kids had they're sitting in totally different ranges. They're sitting around tables facing each other, for one. So it's not a traditional classroom. And they all have their devices out, and they're on different screens, and they're all working on their stuff. And you walk around, and the teacher says, okay, y'all ready to work on your group project? And yeah, and all of a sudden these kids are just, I mean, they're just into it. They're talking, what are you doing on here? I mean, I just never, in an 8th grade class, I mean, we're not talking about a college where they're working on their major and it's something they know they're going to do. This was 8th grade, and I guarantee you those kids are that excited about education, they're going to do well on these tests. We may have to figure out some methods on all that, but, and then to hear from the teachers. And I've also gotten an opportunity to visit with the superintendent at Point Isabel, who also echoes exactly what you're saying. Talked about the teacher, been there 20-plus years, pretty much burned out, was about ready to quit, got put into this program, and just transformed their teaching experience. You know, so you're actually taking care of 2 issues at once. We have a turnover with teachers because they're, you know, feel like they're teaching the test and discipline in the class, all these things. This thing takes care of a lot of things. Discipline in the classroom. When the kids are busy and they're working on projects, you don't have a lot of discipline problems because they're into this. And Thompson Intermediate particularly, you talked about the demographics. These are some of the more harder most difficult demographics to teach, and these kids are thriving in their system. I mean, your story about the elementary school, I've not toured that one, but that's even more dramatic. You talked about the cost. Now, let me ask you real quick, though. The key to this is the teacher. You have to train the teacher how best to use these tools. You can't just put technology in a classroom and think, okay, we've done it. That's not blended learning. Blended learning is actually training these teachers how to get the most out of it and how to work in this environment. But I think y'all both agree, you well stated, it's worth doing this. And I noticed for Cisco, you reallocated resources around to make this thing work.
Yes, sir.
Because we talk about school funds and how much money we have available, and I talk all the time about we've got to increase our productivity. We don't have tons of money coming in from the state budget because there is no extra money in the state budget. So we have to figure out ways to be more productive and more efficient. And frankly, when I see this, I mean, I want to record the video you guys just did just to have that, to describe this in just a brief few moments to people what we're talking about when I talk about blended learning. This is an exciting opportunity to transform. If we scale this up statewide and do this, you watch the education performance change in this state and reaching the fastest growing demographics, which are also our hardest to educate demographics. And you're going to turn this state to where we need to be in the 21st century. I'm excited about what you're doing. I appreciate both of you being here. But this is one of the things when I talk about bringing education in the 21st century. When I saw this, I mean, I'm sold. And we just need to bring this to scale. And obviously the challenge is getting our teachers trained up to do this. And, you know, we had higher ed here a couple of meetings ago. One of the things we got to be pushing our higher ed partners to do is start training this to our student teachers that are coming out in the future, that they're already prepared for this. We don't have to take them out of classrooms today to send them off for education somewhere else. But I appreciate the fact you are training up facilitators and coaches so that you can start doing this now within your own district rather than going out. I think both of y'all went to California, your teachers?
We did, for 2
Cisco,
years.
y'all went to, y'all just did it?
We have done it through Raising Blended Learners, Raise Your Hand Texas, looking at other models. And Senator Taylor, if I may, a couple of points you said. I'm going to stick with your 8th theme. 8th grade is transformative. That is such a key area, and we've seen such a dramatic change in our junior high as well. But try 8-year-olds. I mean, it is just to see 8-year-olds across the board, every single one engaged, on point, whether it's a device or not. Because I watched an 3rd grade math classroom yesterday, and she is not officially a part of our program yet, so she doesn't have all the bells and whistles. She doesn't have one-to-one. None of our teachers have one-to-one, but she only has 3 devices in her room, 3.
Wow.
She still is blending away, and every student on point, because it's not about the technology, it's about transforming the instructional style and instructional method. Another point for you, I've thought about when you were speaking, was about teachers who are nearing retirement. It is about our teachers. It's about reinvigorating teachers, the ones on the front end that are frustrated in their early years, but the ones on the back end. We had a teacher, an elementary teacher, highly successful 3rd grade reading teacher, very, very established and good at what she did. When she started seeing blended around her, she went straight to the superintendent's office. If you even think about bringing that blended stuff to me, I'll retire today. She flat out said, I'm not doing it. I'm too old to change. I'm out. And she retreated in her little classroom and did exactly what she's always done. And then after a few weeks, and she started seeing the students come into her room differently from the math class or the science class, and she starts peeking out. One teacher literally saw her peeking in her window to see what was going on, kind of nonchalant on the down low. And then we started having conversations to the point now, 8 months later from her threat to the superintendent, she's blending in her room. She came to me to talk about it. And she just said, Amy, my heart wasn't in the right place. I thought I knew exactly what to do, and I was having success, and that's the end of it. Even though I knew that every generation, every grade of kids, I got a little bit further apart from them. I got a little more of a challenge to reach them. This is the right thing. She bottom lined it. She goes, this is the right thing for me to do. Help me change. And so she's done it. It's been amazing to see.
Yeah, and now you brought up a point, I didn't even catch that in your first presentation, that y'all weren't on one-to-one devices.
No, sir, we are not. Because, again, the technology is a tool.
Yeah.
And for some teachers, it may be almost one-to-one. For their design, we allowed our teachers to have that autonomy. We're small enough that we could do that. We say, you know what, here are the pillars, here are the driving forces, here are the bumpers. We want to see the data, we want to see student engagement, we want to see personalization, and we want to see rigor raised. We just said, this is what's important to our district to meet what we see as our challenges for us. Now go, you're the professional, you're the expert, let's do it, let's support you. So my role to coach, to bring tissues to the crying, because there's been some of that the first few weeks where they just go, I don't know what I'm doing, why am I doing this? To now 100%, as Dr. Hickman said, would never go back, would never go back. We met with student teachers, I mentioned briefly, student teachers yesterday on our campus. Oh, actually, they're about to start student teaching in the fall. And they were blown away that everything they had been taught so far in student teacher prep, and every classroom they had observed so far looked just exactly like what they thought a class would look like. And then they walked into our blended learning rooms, and they were in 6th grade science, and they're in 7th grade math, and then they go to elementary, and it opened their eyes. They literally said, they don't know how they're going to even walk into a regular classroom, because now they've seen something different. But they asked, how do I do this if I don't go to a blended school? If I'm now inspired, how do I do this in a school that doesn't blend? What do I do? And they asked our teachers, and our teachers gave great input and tried to help them. But across the board, all the teachers that sat with those students yesterday, again, from 30 years experience to 16 to 17 to 3, said, I'll never go back. If I ever leave Cisco ISD, I will have to be able to blend, because I will never be in a traditional classroom again, because they believe that strongly in the transformational power that it has.
Well, and I would just add, the skills, the difference the way the classroom even looks. It's not sitting in rows facing the teacher.
There aren't any desks in most of our classes.
What we're hearing from employers and think 21st century skills is working in groups, working together, thinking creatively, and this is totally changing that. You're not all doing it exactly the same way at the same time. And you don't have one-to-one devices, but what I do hear from blended learning teachers is they actually have one-to-one time with every student, at least once a week, which in a normal classroom, that's very difficult to do. If you have 20 kids, to actually have to sit down one-on-one, like, what's going on, how are you doing on your goals, well, what do you need help with, and just to have that, so the teachers are just really feel like they're doing what they always wanted to be doing,
What they always wanted to do. Students are talking in TEKS now. They're understanding where as Dr. Hickman said, what they're learning in part fits into the whole. We had a local business person come and tour our elementary just about 3 weeks ago, and she talked about just what you said. She said, I have people come to me and asking for jobs and wanting employment all the time, and I hire them and they look great and they've got the intelligence to do it, but they don't think on their own, they don't work well with others, and they just want to check the box. Did I do exactly what you told me to do? They don't want to think outside of that. And one of the things that blended learning does, again, is allows that ownership for the students, and that they are thinking. The students may say, the teachers can tell them, this is on you. You think first before you come to me. And this business owner said, I want to have them in a few years. I want to have these kids that are thinking on their own and being pushed to think and make decisions and work together in peer groups. And so that's been an interesting part for us, too, to have people from the outside come in and share that with us as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I would just say one more thing. The self-pace and the mastery, kids are really learning the material. They're not just under a certain time limit. All right, you got an 80, you get to pass and move on. Well, you've got a 20% deficit. Now we're trying to stack things on top of that. So this whole thing, I think we get a better bang for our buck.
Mr. Williams?
A question and then a request. I'll do the request first. Would it be possible for you to provide the commission, you've got some great STAR data in here as well, but it's all at the approaches level. And for Pasadena, could you do it at the meets and the mastery level, particularly for kids who this is allowing them just to keep going further and further and further? And if you could do that also by particularly economically disadvantaged children, if you wouldn't mind.
We have all of that data. We'd
That'd be
be happy
great.
to send it to the commission.
And then, so what is the biggest hindrance to the expansion of this? Is it just simply, is it capital? Is it training? Is it willingness of parents, willingness of educators? Tell me how big Pasadena is. If you're going to be at 34 campus, 7,500 kids, give me a sense for that as a percentage of your total.
So we have 67 schools in our
Okay.
district. Next year, all 6 of the high schools, we have a career tech high school. All
Right.
6 of the high schools will have a team
Okay.
of doing Connect.
Yep.
All of our intermediates, with the exception of one school, so that's 10 of the intermediate. We have 10 intermediates, 9 will have it. We have 11 middle, 10 will have it. We just started this year with the 4th grade pilot,
Yep.
and it's going so well, so that we're going from 3 to 9. This coming year, we have 36 elementaries. So we are going to begin designing 3rd grade curriculum this coming year, so the following year we will pilot in 3rd grade.
Okay.
The slow, we are actually holding the reins some, because it does take a lot of training and support that first year to get a school started. And so we want to make sure that we set people up for success. So we do an onboarding program for our teachers. It used to be 2 weeks. Now it's a 1-week program because it's so many people. And then throughout the year, we do professional development, convening, time for them to meet together, and at the beginning of the year, gnash teeth, and at the end of the year, celebrate. It does transform, it does change, the attitude changes throughout the year for those first-year folks. The schools where they're expanding, that's going a lot easier because they've already seen the success. They've been able to go in the classrooms and see it for themselves. The ones that are expanding, it's easier now too, because we are not expanding the new schools, we're sending them to the current schools to see it themselves, which really does also help. We're talking about setting up mentorships between this school and this school as we start new schools. But without a lot of coaching through that first semester and sometimes even into March, the teachers struggle. It is not the way they've always taught, and it's hard. It is hard work. It's not an easier, I'm going to sit over here while the kids are on the computer. There is none of that. And so it really does, it's a transformation that has to happen, and the leadership. The principals really have training and coaching that has to go their way, which we really learned after the first year, that we didn't spend enough time on that as we brought in new folks. So we want to keep expanding, but we really want to do it with people who are willing participants and are excited about participating. So as those star scores continue to come in, like we're seeing them, that is going to talk our principals. Like I said, we only have 2 holdouts at the middle and intermediate, and it looks like even one of them might start this coming year. And then I had 12 more elementaries asked to start this year, and we're just waiting to have the support and the technology in place.
So one final question, then I'll close. Can you have more students per teacher under this model that would allow you to direct more money toward the teacher themselves? So if they're in a blended classroom of 30 kids instead of 24, and you could take the extra savings and actually be able to pay the teacher more? Is that possible, or is it really the standard ratios?
It might be in the long run. Right now, because of that one-to-one mentoring and small group instruction, and I'm not sure. We're not seeing that yet, but we're only in the 3rd year of this pilot.
Right.
We are expanding. The original idea was 22-to-1, even in those classrooms, even in the high school. Well, we really can't afford that. So we are looking at models for other folks to come in and help with that mentoring piece, to get to know the kids and spend that time with them, and not necessarily the classroom teacher, because they can't do the mentoring level that we expect with over 25 kids in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Bernal.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. I have to admit that one of your principals, Judy Diaz.
Yes, she's starting this year.
Right, so that's
Next year.
That's my wife's aunt.
Awesome. Yeah, she's very excited.
She's very excited. That's how I learned about this, was from talking with her. I had a couple questions. I wanted to just add some dimension to what you were asking. It sounds to me like this can be a wildly successful program if the technology piece and the application piece is married correctly with the right teacher.
I believe that completely.
Okay, because I think that when we talk about technology, often people's minds drift into a space where they think the technology replaces the teacher, but it sounds to me like this is an enhancement. Sort of
It
like,
gives teachers the time to be able to be one-to-one and
Right.
do all of this other work.
right, and that's amazing. I think another question that you were trying to ask is what's the investment necessary like to do this? Because it sounds like you're adding to some degree technology. In my mind, I'm imagining there's a sort of connectivity piece that has to happen, and then you've mentioned training and coaching and mentorship and professional development. And so I think part of the question is, in light of the sort of more bang for your buck connotation, is what's the investment necessary like to do this, and then scale it up? I think you'd mentioned Raise Your Hand Texas and some other folks who've helped out. And so I think that's what a lot of us are curious about, is in the long run it's exciting, but it sounds to me, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me like there's an investment necessary to sort of wade into these waters.
It's heavy lifting in the beginning. It is a lot of work and the finances are important.
Right.
The Summit Public Learning is supported by the Chan Zuckerberg Institute, and they paid for our first cohort of teachers at 3 schools. All of those folks went to California for 2 weeks, and they did all the onboarding and training for 2 weeks, and we didn't pay anything. And then they came all that next year, and they coached, and they did the convenings, and they trained our teachers, they trained our leaders, and they trained us, quite frankly, in this project. The next summer, with 10 schools, they brought all of them out to California for 2 weeks, and all the leaders. I don't know how many people that summer. It was amazing, and they paid for all of that. We already had the infrastructure in place in our district, and we already had one-to-one bonds had been passed, so our taxpayers basically paid for that for 8th through 11th grade.
8th through 11th grade in terms of having a
One-to-one computers.
device ratio with students? Okay, I understand.
So we had done that part, but they have continued to pay for most of the training and the coaching. Now we've begun to move our IT staff, our instructional technology staff, and they are being trained and learning to be the coaches for our district. And we're finding that the coach load gets lighter, in the 2nd and the 3rd year, because you already have folks at the campus that can continue to help support the new folks that are trying this strategy. So.
And I appreciate that, and thanks for answering my question. My last question just has to do with the one-to-one device ratio. Is that a requirement at the later grades? Because I know you were saying in the earlier grades you've got 3 devices and it works that way. Is it necessary to have one-to-one as you get older, or is it sort of up to the teacher in the classroom?
It's absolutely up to the teacher design, And I would like to comment, if I might.
Sure.
Cisco has no connection to Summit in the California, so we are a completely different animal in terms of how we train our teachers and how we've gone about this. As we participated in Raising Blended Learners, Raise Your Hand has provided us the support, professional development support, and we've gotten what we need. And the first year is heavy lifting. I think it's a great way to describe it. But it happens so organically once the training is in place.
That's right.
Once you have someone who knows what this looks like, who understands how to craft and give guidance and direction to help teachers reimagine their classroom and reimagine their teaching. We've got teachers now that, for the first time ever, one described it as having 8 pages of a grade book, because she's got students in 4th grade science on 4 different sets of TEKs at the same time, because they are self-pacing. They're going along. So once we did so much work in onboarding our teachers and really helping them just with small group discussions, we'd come to Austin, we'd have folks that are helping us in third-party groups from Raise Your Hand to come and work with us. Just trainings, you're talking 3, 4, 5 trainings, and then for me to be trained to just to go in and coach and consistently keep them on point, then it's going organically from there after the first year. Our first-year teachers are absolutely mentors to our second-year teachers, and our second-year teachers are helping our third year. So we didn't, and again, so much of it has to do with the size of our districts.
Right.
But it can be done in a very different way and still be very successful than what Pasadena has described to you. The other thing I would say is, as a rural district, we went from 0 technology in the classroom before blended learning. I mean, the teacher had a computer, and that was about it. Students, if they were on computers, which certainly they were on computers, but it would be a computer lab rotation or something like that. But we didn't have active integrated work in the classroom before blended learning. And so the teachers did design that, and it was about making that fit.
Right.
And once they found that and struck that right chord with the number and the type of software that would help them, it's been seamless. But that first year was, we said fail fast. That became one of our teachers' motto. Just fail fast. We're going to try it and see what goes, and then we'll just reinvigorate. And giving our teachers, I think that was the biggest thing you asked about, also investment. I would say one of the biggest investments for a district is giving permission, and what I would ask for you, for districts across the state, give us permission to try new things. Give us permission to struggle, to have ups and downs, and to learn from this, because it is, in the long run, so beneficial and the right way to go, and we believe and are committed to it. But we've had ups and downs, and some things don't look exactly like we hoped they would, and then some things look much better than we ever imagined. Right. So, but like I said, we are very unique in how we've approached this, but again, the training of the teachers is so much a part of it, the training, and then making sure we have the money for software. You mentioned reallocating funds. It's one way we've done it to work about long-term sustainability from a financial standpoint as a small district, is using instructional material allotment and then reimagining individual cost-saving measures, that if things that have always been purchased, let's
Right.
flip that around into,
Like
into something else.
Textbooks? Yeah.
Like textbooks?
Yeah.
Of course, there is, textbooks is a big thing, but, there's also the reality that textbooks are often for us, one-time purchase until the adoption period changes. Software comes up a little more frequently than that,
Right.
so the cost is certainly not, completely equitable.
Right. Every school has a closet full of textbooks they've been forced to buy that they don't use.
We have
So
whole
this is-
rooms, don't we? It's the
Yeah.
book room, where those
Yeah.
our books
So-
we've never used in 20
so
years.
this is
It's
a
the book
wise
room.
way. Anyway, thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Kylie Johnson?
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate your presentation, your enthusiasm and your excitement. I hope it's contagious, and it's certainly something to take notice of. I do have a question. I'm hoping that you can follow up along the lines with my colleague, Mr. Williams. Could you give us maybe a per student cost of implementing this per class? And because as just sort of looking at the numbers, it looks like you're scaling up to sort of address maybe 15% of your student population, right? I'm not.
Pasadena?
Yes, in Pasadena.
Yeah, so,
Or is the plan to go district-wide, or is it too cost prohibitive to contemplate? Because the issue that I've seen, at least in districts that I've been in, to systemically implement, there's a lot of challenges, what you've already denoted in terms of professional development. We've got pockets where teachers who are savvy, who are trying to adopt it early, but there's a whole sort of half of the other world who doesn't even want to go there. But assuming that you overcome the challenges of training and teachers and getting them mind ready and the curriculum is available, there's the issue with the sticker shock around the hardware and refreshing the hardware. And our bond elections, how has it sort of changed your dialogue with the community and really seeing this as a learning asset, and so that they invest in bond elections and support them? Because otherwise you're investing in a systemic structure that is sort of dependent upon the voting community to say yes. So how has your bond election discussions changed as a result of implementing this? And then the internet access at home, right? I mean, you want to have that continuity. Have you overcome that? And is there an opportunity, not necessarily to 22-to-1, but mixed grades? I don't know why educational folks are scared to sort of mix kids, and but this seems like an opportunity to maybe realize some increased efficiency through basing it on personalized learning, performance, and access, as opposed to sort of the 22-to-1, this grade, that grade. So if you could speak to those, I know it's a lot, but those three things, it would help us tremendously in our planning.
So back to just the computer piece, because in our program, you do need to be one-to-one. It runs us about $350 a student every 4 to 5 years. So we're really lucky if a computer will last for 5 years in students' hands. And 4.5 years is about as best as we can do without having to refresh those computers. So in our district right now, with what we're looking at with one-to-one actually for all students, because we're doing blended learning, not just in those Connect classrooms, but we're using a lot of those playlists and a lot of those projects in the regular traditional classrooms, trying to get them ready and let them feel what it feels like without being all the way in the Connect program, so that it's an easier transition. So we're one-to-one with everybody, which if you refresh at that rate, it's right at about $3 million a year. Yeah, the PD piece, again, right now, we have a lot of support, but both through Raising Blended Learners and through the Summit Public Schools, who are providing that for us, so that's not costing us. Once it does cost us, it's really just, again, transitioning our own staff to be able to provide that. Our specialists right now are in a mixed world, so they're supporting the regular traditional classrooms and the Connect classrooms. They are moving over to be able to be fully able to support Connect. And so I think that that is not an additional cost to us, because we've always spent a lot of money on PD. So that PD will continue to we'll get better and better at it as a school district. And the Summit, I think that they'll be beside us for a long time, but that they are training our trainers. They're training our coaches so that we can support our own teachers. So I think the technology, the internet at home is an amazing cost. We have had a project going that still is not giving us quite what we wanted, which is we have built towers throughout our district in the hope of being able to provide internet access at home to our free and reduced students. That's through a bond issue. Back to that bond issue, our bonds pass in our district between 70 and 80% of our voters vote yes. We have a very supportive community for our public schools. We invite them into the schools. We're very transparent with what we do for them. They've been in the classrooms and seen the Connect classes, our Education Foundation, our school board, any community member who has asked a lot of questions about that. We've invited them in to see the schools, and that really answers everything for them, because once they see what's going on in those classrooms, it's what they want for their students. It is actually very mind-changing for the community. And like I said, this last year we just passed the TRE and the bond at the same time, which is pretty scary for a school district, to tell you the truth, and it passed with absolutely no opposition. We have a tremendous community.
Let me close with a couple of quick questions because we need to move on shortly, but just briefly, so what happens in the blended classroom daily class? The kids walk in and what happens?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. It depends on the teacher, but let me give you an example yesterday of third grade science. Happened to be in that class yesterday with student teachers. Students came in. They immediately got their personal journal, which tracks their data, has their SMART goals that they've set for themselves for the year and also for the particular unit they have. They had already taken their pre-test on this particular topic. I can't remember exactly what the topic was, the unit topic, but they had taken a pre-test, so they knew exactly if they were in the yellow, which means they have some work to do, they can get better, or if they're in the red, like, oh, they're going to have to do a lot more work. You know, they're a newbie. That's what the teacher calls them. You're a newbie. You've got a lot of growth to go. Or if they're in green, maybe they had already mastered that content. They took their journal, so they had everything with them, and they had family time, these third graders. And they spent time, the teacher gave a mini lesson on weather around the smart board with the students, all whole group, for about 10 minutes, just talking about what they're going to be doing. They had a little elbow partner time to discuss one of the activities they were given. And at the end of the 10-minute family time with the overview whole group, then each student broke out. They had a playlist for that unit. They had their must-dos, the 4 or 5 or 6 content things that absolutely every student, unless they had tested out of that unit, had to accomplish, they had to complete for a grade and for their own learning. And then they had their list of may-dos, the things that they could choose to do for themselves. Again, the pace is up to the student. They may choose to do some of their may-dos early or their must-dos first. They can pick and choose there are stations around their room. There may be, there's a set of, a few hard desktops that they could use to watch videos. There were videos that were talking to them about, they were talking about weather. So they were looking up weather. Another station is a collaborative area where a few of the students were together to look up different weather in different parts of the country. And then another station where the students were working independently on some of their work. And the students just flow seamlessly to where they need to be. Again, doesn't happen overnight. The teachers spend weeks onboarding those students, teaching them and training them how that classroom is different than a traditional classroom. But now it's just what it is. The students just walk in. So it looks very different in every classroom, but that's an example of one. Whole group is there, but then one-on-one time with the teachers, and as well. As they go to their stations, one station is always a chance to sit down with their teacher and talk through any of the problems that they're having and to set new goals for themselves. So that's one example.
So I guess I'm chicken, because to have every classroom getting to decide and do it is beautiful. But with 55,000 kids, well, pre-Harvey, 54,000 kids, it's a little scary for us. So we have a pretty systematic approach, and all of our classrooms have a lot of the same similarities, although they do differ from teacher to teacher. So about 2 hours a day, the student is working on their playlist, so working on content. Through the playlist, there's small group instruction going on. They're working with their peers. They now in our program, it pops up with kids who've been super successful on an area that you might be struggling in. So you can actually go ask Mr. Taylor, hey, can you come over and help me because you were successful in this? They can volunteer to be that person. So during PLT time, they're learning the content, they're taking content assessments, and they're actually systematically working through the TEKS. 3 to 4 hours a day are working on the project time. So we're applying now the learning that was in the content. So it's real life. It's pretty exciting to see. It's amazing the work that these kids come up with, but they work in teams. Sometimes they work individually, and the teachers are doing check-ins with the kids. So the teacher is super active during that time too. During the playlist time, there's also times where the teacher's doing some of that mentoring. So the mentoring is part of it. The playlist, which is through a computer, but they're not sitting in front of a computer for 2 hours. And then also 3 to 4 hours with the projects. Does that help?
Yes, very much. I get a good picture, and I need to come visit too. It sounds like.
Please do.
Anytime.
The other thing is, obviously, there's startup costs involved. Once you get past the startup phase, once this is implemented, district-wide, with different things in different districts, give me some idea of how much more or less expensive this model would be on a sustained basis than current. We mentioned some textbook costs might be saved, software development might need to continue, teacher classes might grow, might not. Is this, once implemented, past the startup phase, is this going to be a more expensive school system, a less expensive school system, or we don't know yet?
I think the real truth is we don't know yet. However, I think that the shift with time, talent, and resources it's not going to cost more, because the IMA money that we have doesn't have to go to textbooks anymore, because the curriculum is written pretty well with open sources, and so we're not going to be using the money there, but we will shift that money to keep up with the computer demands in our district. Again, our staff, our central office staff, everybody, we just went through a whole, we're past the pilot, this is who we are becoming, and we all have to be on board. So HR has to be on board, our data folks, everybody needs to be trained in this and really catch up, because we thought we were piloting, but organically it's going way past what we ever dreamed it could be. Somebody asked earlier, is it going to be the whole district? I don't think we'll have a choice. If the kids are as successful as what we're seeing right now, I can't even imagine holding it back from students from having that experience and being able to rise to those levels, not just in content, not just in STAR scores, but when they leave our schools, what are they able to do in college and career, which is really what we're about. I mean, the STAR scores are a great measure to see academically what we've taught, But looking past that, how are they going to be able to function in the world? It's those other skills that they're learning every single day and that we're measuring so differently than just the content. It's the application of the content that's the beautiful part. So answering your question, I don't know, but I see right now that besides the computer part for our district, we will be able to transfer skills, transfer talent, transfer resources to be able to do this at least equal price.
We believe the same. We believe that once the initial startup cost is behind us, and again, because of the spread that's coming from within the teacher body themselves and the training part of it, that it will be very much on pace to what we currently do. It's just a shifting and just as we've asked the teachers to reimagine their classrooms, we've got to reimagine our budget and reallocate how we're approaching things. So that's something that our superintendent and I have worked very hard on to look at that piece. And again, I think the growth is the ultimate. We're going to have to scale right now. As I mentioned, we're 1 to 8, probably will be K through 8. Our high school has not been touched and is not on the map, so to speak, right now. But there's no way around that. When you've given students choice and you've given them the chance to grow and they start believing in themselves that they can think. One teacher yesterday said, we have to remember students have a brain. And they understand and they start grabbing onto that ownership very quickly and setting their own goals. And so we know that after having 2 or 3 years of blended and they go into a high school setting, the pushback from them and from their parents into a traditional high school classroom, which is what we currently have now, is going to be there. So we do believe it will be district-wide in the next 3 years, and it is something that we can sustain by being smart and reappropriating some things. And I mean, a little more IMA money would be great, but we think we can do it, yes, sir.
All right, one more from Dr. Ellis.
Real quickly, have either one of you worked in a bring your own device program into this?
We tried that early on in our district. Before we got to this Connect program, we were doing the bring your own device. And I'm just going to be probably more on, it was pretty much a disaster for us. Our students, the economic background that they come from, the devices they brought we were not able to function in that field. Now, I know that there are districts that have done it well, and it's been fine, but they are not in a district with over 80% free and reduced lunch kinds of kids.
We have not. We have had some teachers be creative themselves and had people donate used iPhones so that they could just connect wirelessly to give little extra devices for students. That's as close as we've ever come. Anything else, and our IT people get a little bit concerned about, but we have not done it and have not really made an effort to do that, no, sir.
Monitoring and security is a huge issue
Sure.
when they bring their own device.
The filtering system makes our IT people very, very concerned with that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dodson. Dr. Hickman, appreciate very much. Very encouraging report. We'll move now to efficiencies at the campus level. We've got representatives